Early days, Outlaw ways, part 2. So this is my original sentencing sheet. Please excuse me, I'm having hiccups. I should probably wait or try to get them to disappear, but I needed to make this video. So this is my original sentencing sheet. It clearly states I was unlawfully carrying a handgun. It was a non-violent charge, but because that handgun was stolen, I pled out, and they just dropped the whole the felony for the stolen handgun and just charged me with the unlawful carrying of a handgun. But we're gonna talk about how I ended up in jail. So it all started with a $50 bag of dope. I was doing good in life. I had a couple weeks sober. I wanted to indulge, so I called up my dealer. Fast forward a little bit, my dealer comes through. He always serves me very late at night because he knows how I do dope. Like, I like to do a lot real quick, and I always lose control and start causing chaos and mayhem, end up in the hospital or jail. So after about 11:30, he gives it to me. I let my parents go to sleep, so now I'm in my room. I'm putting some on the spoon. I'm starting to get those little tingles. Within 1 or 2 shots, I don't really remember what happened next. But long story short, my parents figured out I was getting high in my room. They woke up, and right away, my dad said, pack your stuff up. I'm taking you. You're not staying here tonight. You got to leave, and don't come back for 3 days. At the time, I only had a little bit of fentanyl left, and I only had about $100 to my name, so I didn't have enough for a hotel at all. Which, by the way, man, me talking about this, it's a vulnerability, man. This is not easy to talk about. So right as I'm packing up my stuff, my mom and my dad are mad at me because I broke their heart for the 15th time. I got high. So I get in the car, and right as we're about to leave, you know, in my mind, I know I don't have enough money to get a hotel room, but I'm going to go and either spend my money on a hotel for tonight, or I'm just going to spend all that money on fentanyl and just be homeless for a few days until I can come back. So as we're leaving the driveway, I go check the mail real quick, and boom, my tax refund check with $600 is sitting right there. I grab it so quick. There could not be a better timing for that. My dad sees it. He's like, we'll take you to Walmart first, but you still gotta go. So I go to Walmart, cash my $600 tax refund, and my dad tells me, he's like, you should give that money to me, and I'll make sure you don't I'll give it back to you, but I'll make sure you don't blow it on drugs. I was like, nice try, but this is where I need to go, Dad. So he takes me to the hotel. He's got this sad look on his face. I get out the car, and I walk away. I walk a little bit, and then I get to a Motel 6. They have a special at the Motel 6 where they'll give you 3 nights for, I think it was like $220, or every night for $80. If you want to pay per night, it's $80, but for 3 nights, it's $220. So I go ahead and get the 3 nights. I drop the $220. I tell her I want a smoking room, and I want one all the way in the back. So she hooks it up. So now I'm up on the 3rd floor, all the way in the back, and I start having fun. I finish off the little bit of dope I had. I'm smoking cigarettes, chain smoking. A couple of times, I'm so high off this fentanyl, and I got the TV going. I'm just sleeping in bed, smoking a cigarette, and the fentanyl has me, like, nodding out, and the way the way that I wake up from nodding out is I feel the cigarette, the heat of the cigarette starting to burn me. It already burned through the blanket, and it's starting to burn my skin, and I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, damn, and the cigarette's still lit. That happened about 10 times that night. So now I got holes all over this blanket, and it's just crazy, man. It's just crazy. So that was the first night. That next morning, I didn't really get no sleep. That next morning, I go out to go get some free coffee downstairs. While I'm walking there, the front desk lady, she looks at me and she's like, you can't be doing what you're doing. She's like, no, I done been around. I know that's not who you are. It's the drugs. But she's like, we got little kids here. Like, you can't be doing that over here. So little did I know, she actually called the police for a welfare check on me. Within 5 minutes, like, the police came there, and they weren't there to arrest me or anything. But clearly, like, I was still intoxicated, because when they pulled up, apparently I was dancing. So they tell me, they're like, what's your name? Like, what are you doing here? Are you under the influence? And they finally make a judgment call saying I got to go to the hospital. I did not want to go, man. So many times in my life, like, I've been forced to go to the hospital when I don't want to go because I'm high. So they take me to the hospital against my will. And right when we get to the hospital, the lady that brought me there on the ambulance, I tell her I want to go step outside to smoke a cigarette. She's like, yeah, go ahead. I run. I go out there to smoke a cigarette, and literally, I start walking. I'm like, dang, I know I got more fentanyl in my hotel room. But at the time, I'm like, man, I'm like 5 miles away. I didn't think I was going to make it. So I start walking, and it was so dark and cold and everything. Once I got about halfway there, I realized I wasn't going to make it. And I almost got hit by this one car, and he swung around and asked me where I needed to go, and ended up helping me get there. So once I get back to the hotel, I finally go back up to my room. All my stuff's still there, thank God. Thought it would be gone. Right away, I do another shot. I'm getting back into, like, you know, where I want to be as far as high. So the fentanyl high starts kicking in again. I start being loud, and for the second night in a row, everybody around me on the third floor didn't get no sleep, because once I get high, I start raging, having fun, yelling, all that stuff, playing loud music, everything, you know. So sure enough, when I see that front desk lady again, she tells me, she's like, I tell her, hey, you know, I'm sorry. She's like, you did it again. I was like, did what? Because I don't really realize what I'm doing when I'm high, but she's like, you done woke everybody up, nobody can sleep, everybody's mad, they want their money back, and it's all because of you. She's like, you can't stay here no more. She's like, honey, right away, she started looking at how I paid and how she could get me up out of there. So I tell her straight up, I'm like, hey, you don't have to call the police. I'll leave if you want me to. And she's like, look, like right now, talking to you, you're fine. But she's like, whatever you're taking, that's the problem. It's not you. It's whatever drug you're taking. And I tell her, I know. So she gives me that $70 for the last day. She's like, here. She's like, get all your stuff. You got 1 hour. You gotta leave. That's exactly what happens. And you gotta realize, man, the party never stopped. Because I got that $600 tax refund check, that second day I called my dealer. He drove all the way up there. He had brought 2 little $100 bags of fentanyl. One was rocks and one was powder. He lets me pick whichever one I want. I usually pick the one with rocks, just because I've got better experience with a better high. But I don't know. Some people would get the powder. But yeah, man. So I'm doing more fentanyl to the point where you would think that I had a tolerance, man, but it's crazy. It's like with fentanyl, it's like it's different every time, even with the same batch. It's like certain shots get you so high, and then certain times you're overdosing and you're burning yourself, you're nodding out, you're feeling like a cancer patient, all of the above when you're taking fentanyl like I was, especially IV. So on the third day, like I said, I had nowhere to sleep. I realized I only have to wait one more day before I can go home, because my dad said I need to get out of the house. You're kicked out for 3 days. So this was the third day. So I started calling up my other dealer because I'm running out of the $100 fentanyl bag that I had bought on the second day. It's the third day now. I don't have nowhere to sleep, so I'm going to go ahead and make my way back to my neighborhood, because that's my safety net, you know? When I'm in my neighborhood, not only am I safe, I'm close to home. Right now, where I was staying at the Motel 6, it's about 20 minutes towards Charlotte. So I called my dealer, and for about 6-7 hours, he's telling me he's gonna come up there and get me. He's just gonna have to bring his girl. But the whole time he's lying. But he's telling me he'll sell me $100 worth. What I tried to do was, I tried to get him to come up there and sell me $100 worth, and then get a ride with him back. But he was making buku amounts of money selling fentanyl at the time. So for him, it wasn't even worth driving 20 minutes one way and 20 minutes back to make $100, because he could make $100 way easier than having to do all that. So I'm kind of screwed. I was over here thinking, like, I'm literally sitting at the 7-Eleven. I mean, the Quick Trip. I'm sitting on the different seats, the sidewalks, looking at different guys that are just pulling up and parking in their car. For me, it's really hard to walk up to somebody and ask for anything, especially a ride. But I got to the point where I'm like, hey, I got money. Maybe I can, you know, pay somebody to take me back. And that's exactly what happens. There was a Cracker Barrel right next door. I went inside to eat a peach cobbler. It's my favorite. It's like this ice cream with like little peaches inside. It's so good. If you've never tried a peach cobbler from the place that I just mentioned, I forgot the name. Dang it. It's a breakfast place. Cracker Barrel. Peach cobblers from Cracker Barrel. One of my favorite things to eat. So there's a lady outside. She had just started working there. I later found out she's an ex-recovering addict just like me. But she's parked at her Honda Civic in the back, and she's just sitting in her car on the phone and playing games or something. I walk up, I'm like, hey, is there any way you could give me a ride to Lake Wiley? I got $20. Right away, her eyes open. She's like, yeah. She's like, and then she begins to tell me her whole story, how she used to be a meth addict, and then she went to pills and opiates just like me, but meth was her main problem, and how she found recovery in life and all this other beautiful things. But she did not know, she had an idea, but she didn't know for a fact that I was about to go relapse. Anyway, so she's driving me and she's telling me her story, and she's like, yeah, you could do it. She's like, just get a job, you know, if you have to, let your parents hold your money. She's pretty much telling me everything I've heard before. And so as we get close to the neighborhood, my dealer tells me that he has no problem. He'll bring me $100 worth. So we get to the neighborhood. She drops me off. My dealer pulls up. At this point, I got a bag that's pretty heavy. I got a pistol in the bag, and I got a syringe in the bag. So he gives me $100 thing of fentanyl. Now, I was outside, you know, so I didn't want to just sit down in the open and start mixing up a shot and do it, you know. It takes precision to hit a vein. It takes light and a spoon and a bunch of other things. I just didn't have time for that. So I open up the $100 bag of fentanyl, and there's like this much fentanyl in there. I roll up another bill, And just right then and there, I snort like half of it. I haven't done this in a long time, and I've never done it with this particular type of fentanyl. That short little line, but it was a lot of powder. For fentanyl, man, you think you're only doing a little bit, but you're doing so much more than you think you're doing. That fentanyl rocked me. It rocked me so hard that I didn't even know what happened, because the next thing I knew, I was in handcuffs and in jail. But this is what allegedly happened. So once I did this fentanyl, I snorted way more than I should have. About 20 times more than how much I do in a shot. I just snorted it right off the rip. I take my bag and I just put it in front of my house. It's about 1 minute walk, and then I walk back because I know I can't go in my house. I still gotta wait till the morning. This is where I screwed up. If I would have just went in my house, man, I wouldn't have been in jail. So now I'm high. I got a 9mm loaded on my waist, and I'm just walking around the neighborhood. For some reason, my stupid, inebriated mind, I decided it was a good time to go test out the gun again and go shoot a couple rounds off in the woods. It's about 9 o'clock at night at this time. Or it's late. It's dark, that's for sure. I don't remember exactly what time it was, but it was dark. So I got this fentanyl in my wallet, and I'm just walking down the street. I got rid of the big heavy bag that was with me, but I took the pistol out, and I got the pistol on me. So I'm just walking down the street, and I don't really know what happened. But once I made it all the way down the street, the last house down the street, I was apparently just kneeled down so high. I was about to try to go to the woods, I think, because I was so high. And that's not an excuse. I'm just telling you what it was, you know. But my plan was to go in the woods, you know. I'm feeling so good, feeling so high. Just, you know, bow, bow, bow. Feel like the man, you know, let a couple off. But instead, I didn't even make it to the woods. The last house, the next thing I know, I'm kneeling over, and I open my eyes, and a man opens his door. I'm right at his front door for some reason. He opens his door. He's holding on to his dog, and he yelling at me. He's like, "Get the fuck out of my lawn." And I look at him, like I kind of snap out of it for a half a second, like I don't know what's going on. And first thing that happens is I'm like, what am I doing at this guy's house? I didn't even think about where my gun was, but I found out later that I had dropped my gun right there where I was, for some reason kneeling down in front of this man's house. He says it again. He's like, "Get the fuck out of," and at this point, his other neighbor comes out because he's yelling at the top of his lungs. And she's like, "Tom, what's wrong? Is everything okay?" She's like shining a flashlight. And he's like, "No." He's like, "That motherfucker was just trying to break into my house," or something like that, you know? So I'm over here, I panic. I didn't realize what just happened. So I run this way. And then I realized real quick, I don't have my gun. So I run back this way, and he's like, "The police are coming, you're going to jail." So I run this way, and I'm still so high. If I had any common sense in my brain, I would have like thought about it, and I would have known cops are coming, and I would have got away so easily. But the thing was, I wasn't thinking, and I was high, and I realized I had lost my most valuable possession, which was my gun. So I'm over here trying to think for a second, like, you think I can go get my gun back? Where did I drop it? Where could it be? At this time, I didn't even know. Then all of a sudden, 3 cop cars come flying in, blue lights. They put the spotlight on me, and they come out with the guns. "Put your hands up." I didn't do none of that. I just laid down and put my hands behind my back. Before I knew it, I felt those cold metal handcuffs on. So right away, they're like, "What was you doing over there at that man's house? Were you planning on robbing him?" I said, "No." They're like, "That's your gun. Is that your gun over there?" I was like, "What gun?" They're like, nah, that's your gun. It's gonna have your prints on it, which it did. So I took the rap, but then this is what threw me off. He's like, the gun's coming back stolen. I said, no way. Man, you know how much money I paid for that gun? And how many promises I got? I paid $500 for a cheap-ass Smith & Wesson SD9 VE, which is worth like $300. I paid that extra $200 just to make sure it was a clean gun. And then it comes back stolen, bro. That made me want to just pull up on the dude that sold it to me and pistol whip him, bro. Anyway, so now I'm going to jail. The gig is up. In the beginning of this video, I showed you guys my paperwork and my charges. So let's talk about my trip to jail real quick. So after I go to the hospital because I was high, I pull up to the jail. It's about 3 in the morning. I'm lit. I'm high. I'm nodding off. I'm still feeling good. They put me in the general holding cell. Right away, we got about 10 guys. The biggest guy in there, he's a dude from Harlem, New York. He's in there for kidnapping and domestic violence. He met this girl online. And all the way from Harlem, she lived in South Carolina. She convinced him to leave home, leave New York, and come down here and start a new life with her. So he came down here, and they were good for a little bit, but then they started arguing, started fighting, and apparently he locked her in the bathroom and I think put his hands on her one time, and that's the charges he got. Domestic violence, 1st degree, and kidnapping. I was trying to tell him that kidnapping carries up to 30. But anyway, so he's over here, he's talking to me like a New Yorker, all right? So he's like, yeah, B, you gotta sweat that shit out, B. And I'm over here like, and he's like, boy, if you don't start nodding out, man, I'm trying to talk to you and you keep nodding out. This is the first day. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm sorry. He's like, yeah, bro. He's like, in New York, I was all around them dope heads. Everybody does dope in Harlem. He was telling me about, he's like, hey, B, I grew up around this shit. I know what heroin, I know all that shit. He's telling me about it. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm feeling good. He's like, yeah, I can see it. He's like, you're not going to be feeling good tomorrow. And then other guys come in and they're telling me, man, this place has a mind of its own, man. It don't matter who you are. This place will break you. And I'm over here thinking like, yup. And then the nurse comes around. She comes up with a police officer. They come to the room. They open it. They're like, hey. I walk up. She's like, hey, you want to start taking these medicine? I'll give you one, but you got to take a drug test right now so we can confirm that you have drugs in your system. I said, nah, I'm all right. They're like, are you sure? Because you're still high right now, but as soon as that high wears off, we know how you're going to be feeling. So if you don't want to take this, we're not going to come back with it. That was the biggest mistake I made. I didn't take it. I was still feeling good. It wasn't until that 6 o'clock morning came that next day, and I woke up, and right away, I knew it. I said, damn, I'm dope sick. Damn. The person I was the night before, that person's gone. Now I'm over here mad as hell, not feeling good, feeling like a straight loser, coming off of fentanyl in county jail. It sucked. So now, instead of me and him talking like, what's up, B? Smiling and everything, I'm like, damn, bro, I don't feel good. They're like, bro, and he's telling me, he's like, bro, you know something though? You a real strong dude, bro. Think about this. You're going through something like what you're going through, like detox, and here, he's like, that takes a real man. And inside, I'm like, bro, you're as much as you're right, I wish I wasn't in this predicament I am in right now. And it was what it was, you know. It got so bad that second day, pretty much the first day, that by the end of that night, I was shaking, my legs were shaking. Everybody was laying down on the ground, right? There's only like, on both sides, there's like a little concrete, like, indentation in the wall where like 3 guys can sit. And if you're cool, you get to sleep there at night. So while we're all sleeping on the floor, I'm shaking to where I'm starting to like accidentally kick a couple guys. And every time I accidentally hit somebody, like they wake up and look at me and I'm like, hey man, I'm sorry. It was so bad, man. I was even the first guy that had to sit on that toilet. Every single dude, man, he pees all over that toilet. There's water. Even the water fountain sprays water off. So this whole toilet is disgusting. And there's like 12 or 15 guys in this little room. And I was the first guy. Literally. It was so freaking humiliating, man. I had to make somebody like move. I had to tell somebody to stand up. You can't sit there because I gotta go use the bathroom. And like literally everybody stops talking. Like they're literally just hoping and praying that like the smell of my shit isn't going to like. And I have to think this way too, because not only am I dope sick, like my stomach's messed up. It's only gonna get worse. Man. Like, this is gonna have to be a whole nother video, because the dope sickness that I started feeling in jail is a whole nother story. So on that second day, they came back for rounds, and they told 2 guys, they're like, hey, you and you, both of you guys have failure to appear. That's a very special kind of charge where you will not get bond. The only way you get out of jail with a failure to appear is if your lawyer can do something and get those dropped or something, or I don't know. It's a complicated process to get rid of a failure to appear. That pretty much means you got in trouble and you didn't show up. So yeah. So they're telling these 2 guys, all right, y'all are going to the back. Does anybody else want to go to the back? The back means quarantine. You stay in a cell 23 hours a day. You get 1 hour a rec to make your phone calls or whatever. Walk around, take a shower. But you get a mat all day long. Up here, where we were at, you don't get a mat all day long. You're sleeping on a hard-ass concrete floor all day long, and at night they give you a mat. So I told you guys I was shaking, I was mad, I was detoxing, I was in a bad predicament. I said, hey man, I need to go to the back. I've never been to the back. I've been to jail 4 or 5 times. I've never been to the back. I've always got a bond, and I've always bonded out pretty quick. My bond at this time was $6,000. I had about $450 or $500 to my name. So even though I had that much money, I was so close to having $600 to get out. My parents let me sit in there for 6 days. If you add the three days I was getting high before jail, altogether I was out for 9 or 10 days. So in order to go to the back of the jail, you got to take a shower, you got to get rid of all your clothes, change out, get into the jumpsuit, and grab a mat, and they'll give you like this little finger toothbrush and some hygiene products, and you go straight to the back. So at this point, I'm still very dope sick. I've never even had to take a shower in jail, so this is my first time. I don't even want to take this shower, but I have to. So as I'm dope sick, right before I even go take this shower, because I got caught with a felony this first time, this is my first felony, never been in trouble for a felony. They now have my DNA. They gave me a whole mouth swab. They sent it over to FBI or whoever they sent it to. And they did some kind of nose and a mouth swab to get my DNA. So my DNA is in the system just because I got charged with a felony, but I never got convicted. Watch part 2 to see what happens once I go to the back and it really starts to hit me. Alright, I'll see y'all on the next one.